Welcome to this short guide to introduce you to the Common Placement Assessment Form, or CPAF, that's out in its pilot phase now. During this short video, we will talk you through an overview of the form and its parts, highlighting the assessment guidance. Please do refer to the form itself for full written details of how to complete CPAF. The CPAF aspires to be a consistent and standardised approach to physiotherapy practice assessment in the UK. We currently have over 50 universities who offer pre-reg physiotherapy courses, many of which have different forms to assess students out on placement. The CPAF could be used irrespective of the university in which they attend, and we hope that this will make it easier for practice educators to take students from different universities, only needing to use one form with the same learning outcomes. This also has benefits to the students, as there will be parity between assessment no matter where they study, and also paperwork should not be as much of an issue should they want to have a placement in a different region or country in the UK. The CPAF has also been designed to be applicable in all settings where physiotherapists work, and more than this, it actually encourages diversity. The learning outcomes focus on the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are fundamental to physiotherapy practice in all settings, patient-facing and non-patient-facing alike. This includes communication, working with others, problem-solving and gathering and analysing information, to name just a few. Finally is the great opportunity for data collection that a standardised form brings. Multiple universities using the same form means that we can capture information about different placements, including the settings, the models of supervision and the year groups involved. All of this information will help to drive improvement in practice-based learning amongst our profession. The CPAF has been co-created by the CSP in collaboration with experts in practice education from universities in the different regions and different countries of the UK. This includes the layout of the form, the content of the different sections, and the writing of the learning outcomes. It's also had input from students regarding their understanding of the learning outcomes, as well as their development of resources to apply them into practice with practical tips and examples. The pilot phase is really important to us and allows us to capture information from different groups. We will be capturing information from you as practice educators as to how you find the form out in practice, how applicable it is in your setting, and encouraging your feedback about any aspects of this. We'll also be capturing information from the students and all the universities who are involved in the pilot. The form itself contains 4 parts. Part 1 is professional behaviour and responsibilities, and Part 2 contains the learning outcomes. Both of these parts of the form are assessed and will contribute towards the overall outcome of the placement. They must both be passed independently of each other to pass the placement overall. In addition to this, we have a learning agreement and a section to capture feedback from others. Although not directly assessed, these are very important elements of the form, and evidence gained within these sections may be referred to within the assessed parts. This timeline features in the form. It's a quick guide to highlight what needs to be completed, when and by who, with L indicating the learner and PE indicating the practice educator. You will see that this goes from before the placement starts right through to the end of the placement. And I would like to draw particular attention to the blue section at the top. Although there are times when the form is to be completed, it's really important to say that these are not the only times during which the paperwork should be referred to. If there are any concerns at all at any time throughout the duration of the placement, these must be dealt with immediately and brought to the attention of the university. Similarly, the journey of learning that a student goes on will happen throughout the placement. This too should be regularly reflected on, logged and revisited from day 1 through to the last day and even beyond. This is the front page of the CPAF. For the purpose of the pilot, the form is a PDF. For the rollout of the form, when fully launched, we hope that it will be hosted on a digital platform without the need to print and scan and send to the university. This page contains an overview of the learner, the placement, the practice educator, and the university. It's to be completed at the start of the placement. And can I draw your attention to the header? We have separate forms for the different levels and years of study. These include the levels used throughout the 4 countries in the UK. Please do ensure that you select the correct level of study for your students, as the learning outcome criteria is different between them. If you are unsure about which level your learner is, please seek clarification from the student or their university. The learning agreement is a very important part of CPAF. It's here that the learning in the practice setting is planned, facilitated, generated and reflected upon. As physiotherapists, we aspire to be lifelong learners and to shape and take ownership of our development. And these are skills that we develop along the way from undergraduate and then throughout working life. As a result, the learning agreement is primarily the responsibility of the learner to complete, and a draft copy should be done ahead of the first day of placement, and the form then completed following discussion with their practice educator. It consists of a SWOT analysis to capture the reported strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and potential challenges on placement. It also contains a section to capture any factors that may impact on learning. This section is optional and encourages dialogue between the learner and practice educator to share any information at all that may impact on their learning during the placement. Within the form, there's a list of what this may include, and this list is not exhaustive. Examples may include physical or mental health factors, concerns of discrimination, or financial factors, for example. Finally, the learning agreement includes a personal development plan. This is to capture any personal learning objectives that the student may have, to plan what resources this may need, and to be able to record the outcome. As well as these elements of the form, reflection should form an integral part of the placement. This is a chance to look back on learning events and to ask questions. What went well? What could have gone better? And what would I change next time, for example? Students are encouraged to use the CSP's e-portfolio or similar to document this. The first assessed part of the CPAF is Part 1, Professional Behaviours and Responsibilities. This incorporates the CSP's Code of Members' Professional Values and Behaviours and the HCPC Guidance on Conduct and Ethics for Students. This part is marked as a pass or fail for all learners, and the learner must pass the section by the end of their placement. Failure to do so will override Part 2 and cause the learner to fail the placement at any stage. So back to the timeline and stressing the importance that practice educators and learners should actively use this part of the form throughout the placement. And if there are any concerns at any stage about the learner's performance in this part, that they should contact the university link tutor immediately and not wait for the halfway or end point. This is how Part 1 appears in the CPAF document. There are links to the HCPC and CSP guidance, as well as highlighting that professionalism also includes local organisational guidelines, policies and procedures, as well as turning up on time, how learners conduct themselves on a daily basis and their appearance. Some of the criterion from the HCPC and CSP guidance has been added to the form for practice educators and students to have quick reference to with space for comments. This list is not exhaustive, but highlights key safety elements that must be adhered to. The halfway appraisal is a chance to reflect on the first half of the placement and then use the action plan to plan for the second. At the end of the placement assessment, the practice educator must sign and date to declare whether this part has been passed. Part 2 of the CPAF are the learning outcomes. There are 12 learning outcomes, and these have been grouped into 3 lots of 4 under the headings of personal development, communication and interpersonal skills, and decision-making and implementation. The learning outcomes reflect the content from the HCPC Standards of Proficiency and Standards of Education and Training, as well as the CSP's framework of knowledge, skills, values and behaviours. They've been written in a way to accommodate and encourage diversity, and we hope that they're applicable in all practice settings. We do not refer to patients or specific skills. For example, we do not mention subjective or objective assessments, but rather focus on the gathering and analysing of information and communication. This would make it as relevant to a patient-facing placement as a research-based placement, or acknowledge the information gathered in a project that may form part of learning. This is an example of the layout of the marking matrix for each learning outcome. So each learning outcome has a title, and the one on the screen here is Learning Outcome 1, Independent Learning. They then have a description of that learning outcome, and this details a summary of what the learning outcome means. Each learning outcome is then broken down further into 3 domains. These make it clear to the practice educator and student as to what they are looking for or what they should be demonstrating in practice. For example, here the learner will be assessed on their ability to identify personal learning and development needs and engage in a personalised plan. Then, their ability to identify and use a wide variety of learning and development opportunities and resources. And finally, their ability to reflect on their learning process. Now let's look at the assessment criteria highlighted in purple. Irrespective of whether a learner is assessed on pass or fail or graded, the same assessment criteria grid is used. We hope that this will make it easier for practice educators, as well as to allow the student who may be assessed as pass-fail to have the same detail within their feedback as if they were graded. For BSc programmes, the satisfactory category or above is classed as a pass. As you can see, there is a huge range of ability within the pass category that can offer great feedback to the learner and allow them to structure where they are and where they hope to be, and to plan their learning going forwards. Part 2 is marked as either pass, fail or graded, depending on the university requirements. The learner must pass all 12 learning outcomes by the end of the placement. If the learner is awarded a fail in one of the domains of the learning outcome, an overall pass for that learning outcome is awarded. If the learner is awarded a fail in 2 or more of the domains, an overall pass for that learning outcome is not awarded. There are 12 learning outcomes with 3 domains in each. So that means there are a total of 36 domains. A learner can fail up to 3 domains across the 12 learning outcomes and still achieve an overall pass mark. However, if they fail 4 or more domains across all of the learning outcomes, they will be unable to achieve an overall pass. The practice educator is required to make a professional judgment about the learner's level of ability using the learning outcomes and assessment criteria. For example, this means that for those on pass-fail placements, you will be able to clearly select a pass or fail. For those on graded placements, you can use your professional judgment to create the grade boundary or specific percentage. If, for example, you have a learner with a very good and 2 goods within a learning outcome, you can use your judgment as to what the overall mark will be, understanding and applying the context of your setting. There is an assessment page with each learning outcome. Again, it has space to be completed in collaboration with the learner at the halfway and end of placement points. There is space for an optional indicative grade boundary at the halfway point and space for the overall result. Again, we encourage using the halfway to see how the learning may be planned for the second half of the placement. This page in CPAF allows the practice educator to see the assessment outcome from all parts on one page. From this, the learning outcomes can be clearly documented. If pass or fail, simply mark this as so. And if graded, we encourage practice educators to discuss with the university how they would prefer this to be done. For example, to be added up and divided by 12, or by using your professional judgment. The final numerical mark should be an overall mark that represents the learner's performance throughout the placement. This section is not assessed, but is very important. It's a space to capture feedback from others, and this could be anyone, a patient, other students, a member of the MDT, for example. Finally, as this is a pilot, we need to capture lots of information from you about its use out in practice. We very much value your opinion and feedback, and this QR code appears on page 2 of the paperwork and again at the end. Simply scan it on a mobile device and it'll take you to a short survey to capture your feedback. Please do complete the survey. It would be fantastic if every student gave their feedback and every practice educator as well to shape the form ahead of its future release. All that's left for me to say is a huge thank you to you for your support and involvement in the pilot of CPAF. We're really looking forward to sharing the outcome of the pilot with you all. And if you have any further questions at all, please do get in touch on learninganddevelopment@csp.org.uk. Thank you.